and ending on page 2 with Maria Wyman. Are there any objections to that motion? Hearing none, so ordered. Alderman Kovac will move approval of the warning letters beginning on page 3 with Anna Marie Acevedo and ending on page 3 with Joseph Sibby. Are there any objections to that motion? Hearing none, so ordered. Without any further business, file number
211360.
Alderman Burkowski will move approval of the file. I'm hearing no objections, so ordered. Without no further business, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Common Council will come to order. Today is January 18th, a little after 9 a.m. Will the city clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Hamilton. Here. Kovac. Here. Alderwoman Dodd.
I just saw her. There she is.
Oh, sorry, I turned my camera on, but not my mic. Present. I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Cogs.
Present.
Rainey.
Here.
Zamaripa.
Here.
Lewis.
Here.
Burkowski. Here. Perez.
Here.
Spiker.
Here.
Dmitrievich.
She's on the board, but...
Alderwoman Dmitrievich.
Alderwoman, you may be muted. Excuse.
Damper.
I'm here.
Mr. Chair.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to be followed by a moment of silent meditation. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any objections to the journal for either the regular meeting of December 14th, 2021, or the special meeting of December 23rd?
There are no corrections to the journal.
There being no corrections, the minute of these meetings stand approved. Will the clerk please inform the Common Council of any commendations or condolences to be acknowledged at this time?
File 1. Communication from the City Clerk relating to various commendatory and condolatory resolutions to be acknowledged and affirmed by the Common Council. 1. Resolution recognizing Mayor Tom Barrett for his dedicated service to the City of Milwaukee during his tenure as the city's Chief Executive. 2. Resolution recognizing Dr. Wilma L. Bonaparte for 30 years of service to the greater Milwaukee area community. 3. Resolution recognizing Paul Witkowski on his promotion to Colonel in the United States Army. 4. Resolution congratulating Bishop Ozzie Tatum Jr. of Mason Temple Church of God in Christ on the occasion of his 80th birthday. 5. Resolution expressing condolences to the family and friends of Daniel F. Dan Boyce. 6. Resolution congratulating Sharon Biggs on her retirement from Employ Milwaukee Incorporated. 7. Resolution congratulating Andrew Wilkie on his retirement from the Milwaukee Fire Department. 8. Resolution congratulating John Lloyd on his retirement from the Milwaukee Public Libraries. 9. Resolution congratulating the following on their retirements from the Milwaukee Water Works: David Bain, Stephen Brengus, Michael Wiederholt. 10. Resolution congratulating the following on their retirements from the Milwaukee Police Department: Sean Hanley, Harrison Kern, Alana Quigley, Mitchell Ross, and Todd Smolin. 7. Resolutions congratulating the following on their retirements from the Milwaukee Public Schools: Julene Crockett, Tammy Nemoir, Manuel Rodriguez. And 12. Resolutions congratulating the following on their retirements from the Department of Public Works: James Bezzi, James Kihos, Joseph Mania, Arthur Schaffschma, Ronnie Simmons, and Jeffrey Polensky.
Are there any objections to the foregoing commendations and condolences? If anyone wishes to be added as a sponsor to any of the commendations or condolences, please fill out the form on your desk and submit it to the city clerk before the close of the day. We will now take up reports of standing committees. Alderwoman Mullally Coggs will now present the report of the licensing committee.
The Licenses Committee recommends file number 211360. Motion to approve the recommendations of the Licenses Committee relating to licenses. Included in the file are the following recommendations: renewal with a 14-day suspension based on the police report, aldermanic, and applicant testimony of the Class B tavern, food dealer, and public entertainment premise licenses for Monica Hernandez Gaspar for the premise located at 1801 South Muskego Avenue, doing business as La Caleta Restaurant and Bar in the 8th Aldermanic District. Non-renewal of the home improvement contractor's license based on the second non-appearance for Arthur R. Mahan, doing business as Sam Development LLC. Non-renewal based upon the second non-appearance of the Class D operator's license for Tiffany A. DeBaker. Non-renewal based upon the second non-appearance of the Class D operator's license for Daryl Gladney. Non-renewal based on the second non-appearance of the Class D operator's license for Paige L. Lindelbauer. Non-renewal based on the second non-appearance of the Class D operator's license for Brittany M. Johnson. Non-renewal based on the second non-appearance of the Class D operator's license for Brenda Melendez. Let the record reflect that no written objections have been filed to any of the foregoing.
Have the members of the Common Council read the report and recommendations of the License Committee and the exceptions filed in this matter? Roll call.
Alderman Hamilton.
Aye.
Kovac.
Aye.
Bauman.
Aye.
Dodd.
Aye.
Coggs.
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
Samaripa.
Aye.
Lewis.
Aye.
Borkowski.
Aye.
Perez.
Aye.
Spiker.
Aye.
Dimitrievich.
Aye.
Camper.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
14 ayes.
14 ayes, the matter is approved. Are there any motions?
Mr. Chair, excuse me. Mr. Chair,
Yes.
sorry for the interruption, Mr. Chair. I had a technical problem. Could you please let the record reflect in unanimous consent that I was present.
Alderman Bauman moves so, and hearing no objections, so ordered.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any motions relative to this matter? Okay. If there's no further discussion, I would request a vote of those council members present to approve the recommendations of the Licensing Committee as contained in file number 211360. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Hamilton.
Aye.
Kovac.
Aye.
Bauman.
Aye.
Dodd.
Aye.
Cogs.
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
Belmadipa.
Aye.
Lewis.
Aye.
Borkowski.
Aye.
Perez.
Aye.
Spiker.
Aye.
Dmitrievich.
Aye.
Stamper.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
14 ayes.
14 ayes. The matter is approved. Is there any further discussion on the committee report?
Mr. Chair, there is no further business before the Licenses Committee.
Okay, hearing none, Alderwoman Cogs moves for approval of the remainder of the report of the License Committee. Will the clerk please call the roll?
There is nothing to roll call.
Oh, there is, sorry. Hearing no other. Thank you. Alderman Bauman will now present the report of the Public Works Committee.
Public Works Committee recommends approval of 3, motion relating to the recommendations of the Public Works Committee relating to licenses. 4, substitute motion relating to the locations of various Milwaukee County Transit System bus stops. The Public Works Committee recommends adoption of 5, resolution relating to the allocation of demolition funds. 6, resolution approving levying of assessments and construction of accessible public improvements projects at various locations and appropriating funds for these purposes, with the city cost of these projects approved by this resolution estimated to be $4,160,245 for a total estimated cost of $4,703,000. 7, resolution determining it necessary to make various accessible public improvements at various locations and appropriating funds for these purposes, with the city engineering cost estimated to be $10,000 for a total estimated cost of these projects being $110,000. 8, substitute resolution determining it necessary to make various non-accessible public improvements at various locations and appropriating funds for these purposes, with the city engineering cost estimated to be $2,287,000 for a total estimated cost of these projects being $15,096,000. 9, substitute resolution approving construction of non-accessible public improvements projects at various locations and appropriating funds for these purposes, with the city construction cost estimated to be $7,139,000 for a total estimated cost of these projects being $9,174,000. 10, substitute resolution directing the Commissioner of Public Works to execute a local municipal agreement with the Milwaukee County Department of Transportation to fund the installation of street lighting, city underground conduit, and traffic facilities included in the East North Avenue Bridge over the Oak Leaf Bike Trail Improvement Project for the Wisconsin Department of Transportation. 11, resolution approving a Fourth Amendment to lease agreement with New Singular Wireless PCS LLC for the placement of personal communications service antennas and ancillary equipment at 5600 West Oklahoma Avenue. The Public Works Committee recommends confirmation of the following. 12, appointment of Alderwoman Jocasta Zamaripa to the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewerage District by the Mayor.
Alderwoman Zamaripa moves to be abstaining from item 12. A motion made by Alderman Bauman. Hearing no objections to that motion, so ordered. Is there any further discussion on the committee report? Hearing none, Alderman Bauman moves for approval of the report of the Public Works Committee. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Hamilton.
Aye.
Kovac.
Aye.
Bauman.
Aye.
Dodd.
Aye.
Cogs.
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
Belmadipa.
Aye.
Lewis.
Aye.
Borkowski.
Aye.
Perez.
Aye.
Spiker.
Aye.
Dmitrievich.
Aye.
Stamper.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
14 ayes.
14 ayes. Committee report is adopted. Alderman Scott Spiker, Vice Chair of the Finance and Personnel Committee, will now present the report of the Finance and Personnel Committee.
The Finance and Personnel Committee recommends passage of 13, a substitute ordinance to further amend the 2022 rates of pay of offices and positions in the city service. 14, a substitute ordinance to further amend the 2022 offices and positions in the city service. The Finance and Personnel Committee recommends adoption of 15, resolution directing the Department of Employee Relations to update the city's anti-harassment policy and workplace violence policy to include elected officials and appointees. 16, resolution authorizing the sale and issuance of general obligation bonds in the aggregate amount of $3,430,000 for bridges. 17, resolution authorizing the sale and issuance of general obligation bonds in the aggregate amount of $10,500,000 for street lighting. 18, resolution authorizing the sale and issuance of general obligation bonds in the aggregate amount of $32,986,000 for street improvements. 19, resolution authorizing the sale and issuance of general obligation bonds in the aggregate amount of $2,812,000 for harbor improvements. 20, resolution authorizing the sale and issuance of general obligation bonds in the aggregate amount of $29 million for sewerage. 21, resolution authorizing the sale and issuance of general obligation bonds in the aggregate amount of $850,000 for parks and public grounds. 22, resolution authorizing the sale and issuance of general obligation bonds in the aggregate amount of $7,220,000 for the construction of police facilities and combined fire and police safety buildings. 23, resolution authorizing the sale and issuance of general obligation bonds in the aggregate amount of $450,000 for construction of engine houses and for pumps, water mains, reservoirs, and all other reasonable facilities for fire protection apparatus or equipment for fire protection. 24, resolution authorizing the sale and issuance of general obligation bonds in the aggregate amount of $1,380,000 for fire engines and other equipment of the fire department. 25, resolution authorizing the sale and issuance of general obligation bonds in the aggregate amount of $1,300,000 for parking lots and other parking facilities. 26, resolution authorizing the sale and issuance of general obligation bonds in the aggregate amount of $2 million for school purposes. 27, resolution authorizing the sale and issuance of general obligation bonds in the aggregate amount of $664,000 for libraries. 28, resolution authorizing the sale and issuance of general obligation bonds in the aggregate amount of $16,714,000 for buildings for the housing and machinery and equipment. 29, resolution authorizing the sale and issuance of general obligation bonds in the aggregate amount of $1,250,000 for providing financial assistance to blight elimination, slum clearance, community development, redevelopment, and urban renewal projects under various provisions of the Wisconsin state statutes. 30, resolution authorizing the sale and issuance of general obligation bonds in the aggregate amount of $25 million for tax incremental districts for providing financial assistance to blight elimination, slum clearance, community development, redevelopment, and urban renewal programs and projects under various provisions of the Wisconsin state statutes. 31, resolution authorizing the sale and issuance of general obligation bonds in the aggregate amount of $43,050,000 for water systems. 32, resolution authorizing the sale and issuance of general obligation bonds in the aggregate amount of $6,700,000 for any combination of sewerage, garbage, or refuse or rubbish disposal. 33, resolution authorizing the sale and issuance of general obligation bonds in the aggregate amount of $37 million for grants and financing receivables. 34, resolution authorizing the sale and issuance of general obligation refunding notes and bonds. 35, resolution authorizing the issuance of $25 million in general obligation notes to pay a general and current municipal expense associated with the Community Development Block Grant and other grant programs. 36, substitute resolution relating to the carryover of 2021 authorization for general obligation and revenue-based borrowing. 37, resolution authorizing the Commissioners of the Public Debt to market up to $150 million of general obligation revenue anticipatory promissory notes. 38, substitute resolution authorizing the Commissioners of the Public Debt to market general obligation promissory notes. 39, substitute resolution authorizing the Commissioners of the Public Debt to market general obligation corporate purpose bonds. 40, resolution relating to the approval of funding for the 2022 Department of Administration Information and Technology Management Division Public Facility Communications Capital Improvements Program. 41, resolution establishing a city data governance plan. 42, substitute resolution directing the Health Department to distribute free COVID-19 at-home tests and gift cards for individuals who have received COVID-19 vaccination booster shots. 43, substitute resolution accepting a gift of services from Milwaukee Incorporated for upgrading and developing the Direct Connect Milwaukee platform.
Alderwoman Dimitrievich.
Yes, good morning, and thank you so much. I'd like to speak to item 42. We had a really excellent dialogue in both public safety and then finance on rapid tests and the booster incentives. The first discussion was a few weeks ago, and the last discussion was last week in finance. And I'm really glad that we had such a, like I said, a diverse debate about where the city should be in rapid test. Well, just this weekend, we received really great news, and we knew it was on the way from President Biden on the rapid test plan. And I did talk to the health department a little bit about this. We now have details that it's actually beginning tomorrow. So tomorrow, our residents can go on the website, hope everything works out, and it looks like 4 tests per family, and they can get it shipped within 7 to 12 days. So we knew this was on the horizon, but these details were just released, and it sounds amazing, and I hope it is. And it sounds like it'll get the tests in the hands of Milwaukeeans fairly quickly. So what I did want to do was move hold to see where we are, next month in a couple of weeks, if people have been able to go on the website and obtain them. I mean, if everything goes as planned, again, by the time this item will be up in a couple of weeks, people could have had 1 or 2 rounds, perhaps, of the tests coming to them from the federal government, and that would be a preferred option. So I'm happy about it, and I do move hold at this time. My intent was never to be duplicative. It just looks like this is going to be faster for Milwaukeeans, Mr. Chair. So I move hold at this time.
At this time, Alderwoman Dimitrievich moves to hold in the Common Council, and hearing no objections, so ordered. Please proceed with the remainder items of the agenda.
The Finance and Personnel Committee recommends placing on file 44, communication from the Department of Employee Relations relating to classification studies scheduled for City Service Commission action. 45, communication from the Department of Employee Relations amending the salary and positions ordinances relating to clerical or administrative corrections. 46, communication from the Department of Employee Relations amending the salary ordinance to provide an additional 1% biweekly for FLSA non-exempt employees assigned to drive during a general ice control and snow plow operation. And 47, communication from the Department of Employee Relations amending the salary ordinance to increase the daily rates and provide bilingual compensation for election inspectors and chief inspectors in the Election Commission.
Is there any further discussion on the committee report? Hearing none, Alderman Spiker moves for adoption of the recommendations of the Finance and Personnel Committee. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Hamilton.
Aye.
Kovac.
Aye.
Bauman.
Aye.
Dodd.
Aye.
Cox.
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
Zamaripa.
Aye.
Lewis.
Aye.
Borkowski.
Aye.
Perez.
Aye.
Spiker.
Aye.
Dimitrievich.
Aye.
Damper.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
14 ayes.
14 ayes, the committee report is approved. Moving on, Alderman Al-Shanti Hamilton will now present the report of the Judiciary and Legislation Committee.
The Judiciary and Legislation Committee recommends passage of 48, a substitute ordinance relating to aldermanic district boundaries commencing in 2022. And the Judiciary and Legislation Committee recommends placing on file 49, substitute resolution authorizing settlement of claims in the adversary proceedings entitled Citywide Investments LLC versus the City of Milwaukee, U.S. Bankruptcy Court, Eastern District of Wisconsin.
Alderman Perez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this time, I'd ask that this file be held. I want to begin by just thanking all of my colleagues, especially Alderman Hamilton, that when the veto was sustained, this was a real opportunity. It was an opportunity to ensure that the Latino community could be better engaged, could be represented, and that it would be a representation that was just, that it would reflect the impact of the growth the Latino community has had in Milwaukee and in the region, but specifically in Milwaukee, which is now 20% of the population. And I want to say again, thank you to my colleagues, thank you to LRB. This was a difficult process, and I especially want to thank the leaders of the Latino community for their tenacity and their hard work. But this process gave them a sense of hope, right? That we could make the numbers more reflective of the population and the impact we had. And even though at times the Latino community had difference of opinion about how big that increase should be, they were together on two things: sustaining the veto and the information that we got at the 11th hour, moments before a vote in the Judiciary and Legislative Committee, was unfair and it was unjust. And it put all of us in a really bad position. I can't tell you how hurt they are. I can't tell you how angry they are. And I think anger is an appropriate response to an injustice. This isn't the first time that the city attorney, the council, the mayor's office disagree on opinions. Years ago, there was a disagreement between the mayor's office and then City Attorney Grant Langley on pension issues. The mayor went out and got a second opinion to verify the information. Years ago, the city attorney had told this council that it could defend a disparity study. And then once the study was moved and the ordinance was changed, it went to court and it had to get repealed. And we moved forward in a way that said we're going to get the study right this time. We made a significant investment to do that and to make sure that people were fairly represented and that we could move forward. I'm asking everyone to please support the hold so that we can get a second opinion on the opinion we received, to be able to look at our community and to tell them we did everything possible to ensure the information we got and the decision that was made was the right one. I know it's not easy. I know it puts us all at risk to a certain extent, but I think it's worth it. I can't tell you the violation that the community feels has happened when it comes to voting, when it comes to representation, and I ask my colleagues to support the hold. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderman Perez. I'd like to recognize Alderwoman Marina Dimitrievich on the motion to hold.
Oh, yes, Alderwoman Zamaripa wished to be heard before me.
Okay, you got to hit your green light, then I know it. Okay, Alderwoman, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have remarks I want to make if and when the vote takes place today on map A, but I want to, of course, second Alderman Perez's motion to hold this. We know, and I know my colleagues that are on the Committee on Judiciary and Legislation knows that we were sucker punched by the City Attorney's Office last week, Monday, in Judd-like committee. Multiple Assistant City Attorneys failed to advise and inform members of the Common Council. They knew full well that we were working with the Latino community to draw a more favorable map. Frankly, we all knew when former Mayor Barrett vetoed it in December. These Assistant City Attorneys gave us no indication of their intention to set a trap for my community on committee day and accuse our constituents, myself, and some of my colleagues of being in violation of the 14th Amendment. What we can do here to express our outrage on behalf of our constituents, but also on behalf of our colleagues who are not advised by the city attorney. Are we not their client? Is it not their responsibility to adequately advise us and not be setting traps, lying in wait and setting traps? And so I simply want to second Alderman Perez's motion that we hold this and get that second opinion, legal opinion on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Alderwoman Dimitrievich.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I also, at this time, will be supporting the motion to hold. And all I want to add, this has been, I know you all agree, it's been a long debate. And as was stated, we spoke to many, many people. It's interesting. I gave a lengthy speech. Gosh, I guess that was a week ago. What a week it's been. At the special, the Judiciary Committee after hours of public testimony, and then we had the closed session. And all I want to add to this discussion is you heard a lot about the frustration and pain that's felt. For me, uniquely, I worked on a map that I knew was imperfect and put forward a lot of change for both District 13 and 14 to the point of almost a 40% change. And I didn't do that easily. And so, interestingly enough, that map still irritated many people. And I was interested in that being heard today. I thought that today would have been the day where maybe, just maybe after some divisiveness, we could have come together on that or something like it that could have met some of the needs and desires that have been voiced so loudly throughout this discussion. So I just want to express discontent that that's not before us today, or some option isn't, and that is why I'll be supporting the hold at this time.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Alderman Perez.
I forgot to mention that today I will be submitting a file to explore a second opinion and get that through the appropriate committee for this council to make a decision. And like I said, I can't express more gratitude for all my colleagues who sustained the veto and went through this process, which was painful. And that support was there for the Latino community. And I know I'm going to ask them to do it again. They weren't the issue. The opinion and the information received at the last minute was the issue. And wanted to know that, I wanted everyone to know that they were on our side, and we need them to continue to be on our side on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Perez.
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Baumann.
Yeah, as I understand it, the end game here is to solicit outside counsel to submit a second opinion. And I certainly appreciate the anger of individuals regarding how the city attorney handled this matter and how the opinion ultimately came out essentially in closed session at the Judiciary and Legislation Committee meeting last Monday. I think it was last Monday. And that process was very problematic. I think it bothered everybody. But their opinion was pretty straightforward. Now, a second opinion will involve a council cycle to authorize the clerk to solicit a second opinion. The clerk will then have to go through purchasing to procure a request for proposal. The request for proposal will have a number of weeks, if not months, for the proposals to be submitted, 60, 90 days perhaps. The purchasing department, in collaboration with the clerk, will then review the proposals submitted, select someone to commence the process. That could be another 30, 45 days. And then, of course, that attorney or attorneys, as the case may be, would then begin the process of review and research. And so we could be looking at a 4, 5, 6 month process to procure a second opinion. And I guess then what? What if the second opinion confirms the city attorney's advice? Does somebody ask for a third opinion and a fourth opinion? Perhaps the second opinion disagrees with the city attorney's advice. Well, then where are we? Flipping a coin? Who's right? Who's wrong? Who's making the best case? I respectfully submit, if people want a definitive answer to this question, the best way to proceed is to approve Map A today, and if parties feel that Map A is illegal or violates some set of rights, then they can go to court and get a court to render an opinion in the form of a judgment, a decision on the matter, which will resolve it hard and fast and resolve it going forward, rather than end up with battle of experts and battle of opinions and being 45 days, 4 months, 6 months, 5 months down the road, and we're right back where we started. Either the opinion confirms the city attorney, in which somebody will disagree with it, and then they'll ask for a third opinion, or disagrees with the city attorney, and then we're right back where we started. So I understand the anger, I understand the frustration, but this really isn't a way to conduct business. If there are individuals in the community that feel our actions are illegal, that Map A is illegal, then I encourage them to file an action and get a definitive ruling from a state court or a federal court, and then we know. And then there's no back and forth between differing opinions of lawyers. Then we know for sure. And it's not costing us anything, because we'll be paying for this outside counsel. Just as by way of example, I mean, we went through a somewhat similar process with this Couture development. We still don't have an answer. In fact, the matter hasn't even gone to the arbitrator yet, and we're almost a year out from the passing of the Couture file, which was in March of 2021. We will exceed 1 year and probably incur up to $100,000 to determine whether the $100,000 contribution was legitimate or not. So just be wary of what you're asking for here. I think however problematic this was handled by the city attorney's office, we could be going down a road that is far more problematic. And then I understand there's a legal memorandum out there which sets forth the various uncertainties that can ensue if we do not have a map in place by today. The potential of third parties submitting maps to a court and asking a court to basically impose a map on us, and ourselves essentially losing control of the mapping process. And I think that is now, as pointed out in that memorandum, there's not a lot of clarity in the law as to what happens from this point going forward. But the memorandum clearly set forth the potential, the possibility that we could lose control of the redistricting process. And that could turn everything upside down. Someone could completely redraw the maps of all districts of the entire city. And now we're leaving it in the hands of a judge in Milwaukee County Circuit Court, and then the potential for appeals. We could be stepping off on a very lengthy, complicated process full of minefields, full of traps, full of booby traps that we will definitely regret down the road, versus a very simple course of action. Map A, recommended by the city attorney, our attorneys, we pass it, let aggrieved parties file an action, challenge the map. I'm all for that. And then we get an answer from a judge, but then we have a map in place. So we're not running the risk of losing control of this redistricting process, which at minimum that legal memorandum suggested we could. So that's my position. So I do not support holding this account.
All right, okay. Just for edification, though, for council members, just to remind everyone, it only takes 3 votes to hold it in the committee. I understand. I just want to make sure everyone else does. Alderwoman Zamaripa, and then Alderman...
Mr. Chair?
Okay,
Mr.
you got your light on. Alderman Hamilton.
Yeah, I just wanted to correct that. The motion that was read, that was requested was a regular hold. There wasn't a motion to hold in council.
Okay. Thank you. Alderman Zamaripa?
Mr. Chair, I just want to respond to Alderman Bauman's remarks. This isn't just about the legal opinion that the city attorney wrote. It is also about the maps. As you recall, in Judd-Lake Committee, they essentially shut down committee and made us go into closed session to declare that all the maps, except the vetoed, less diverse, less representative map A, all the other maps are illegal. I refute that. Even looking at that, by reading that opinion, and I tried to express this in both public as well as closed session, that certainly at minimum map B, the Forward Latino Compromise map, certainly took into account other factors other than race and ethnicity. That was apparent as they only got to something like 36% Latino because they took into account the factors that were of the utmost importance to Alderman Spiker, such as the airport, the Islamic Community Center, so on and so forth. So much of a compromise it was that the Latino organizations and leaders were in conflict, in disagreement, arguing with each other because it was a lesser amount of Latinos than we could have gotten to. So I refute also the accusation from the city attorney's office that all maps were illegal except the less diverse, less representative vetoed map A. Secondly, I want to point out, we have a memo that Alderman Perez requested around what will happen if we miss this January 18th deadline. It is not the scare tactic that Alderman Bauman has related to us. It is much less than that. And I think that we deserve, or rather not us, our community, our constituents deserve for us to slow down and look at what we have done here, the grave injustice that we have served up to the Latino community the day after MLK Day, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, if I might,
Just make sure everyone who hasn't had a chance to speak. Okay, Alderman Bauman.
Alderwoman Zamarripa raises a good point, and I would respectfully suggest then offer map B up for a vote. We approve it, and if somebody feels aggrieved, they can file a lawsuit, and then we'll get an answer on map B. If in your judgment map B is legal and enforceable, then offer it for adoption, which you can do. You can do now. We can take a recess. You can have a file drafted, and we'll substitute map B for map A, and we'll take a vote on map B. Then we got something. Right?
Okay.
And if we feel map B is legal and enforceable, then we make that political decision and let the chips fall where they may in terms of litigation down the road.
Further discussion? Alderman Spiker.
Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As everybody who's been involved in this knows, this has been an extremely tough process that we've been engaged in. I just did want to make clear a couple things that haven't been brought to the fore. One is that, as I mentioned in Jet Leg, as you heard testified to, the Muslim community, it was in discussions with the Muslim community that the idea for asking for this opinion even came to the fore. It's not, as it were, a victimless situation. Members of that community felt that they were not being included in this process, that their rights were being violated. The Equal Protection Clause ensures that you cannot treat one community over another in your drawing of district lines, absent a very compelling state interest, such as a possible violation of the Voting Rights Act. The City Attorney's Office, and I believe it's been tacitly recognized by the advocacy groups as well, the City Attorney's Office has said map A, the original map we passed 14-1 2 months ago, is legal and enforceable. The problem then becomes, why would you move away from map A? And here I do believe a trap was set, but I don't believe it was quite the City Attorney's Office. The mayor, in his veto message, encouraged us to better reflect the growth in the Hispanic community, which I think we all agree is a laudable aim. The problem is trying to increase the Hispanic population, whether voting age or total, in the goal has been the 13th district, and diminish it in the 14th. That sort of drawing of lines based predominantly on race, the reason we're moving away is predominantly based on race and ethnicity, is a violation of the Equal Protection Clause to the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. I've included one of the Supreme Court cases, so you can read it for yourself, is black and white. So absent a Voting Rights Act problem, there's no reason to move away from map A. And so we do not just our current efforts, but all future efforts to leave map A behind on the basis of race and ethnicity will raise exactly the same problems. So the end game, 4 to 6 months to arrive at exactly the same point, and that's why I included the opinion. It is as clear as you can be. If you are predominantly using race or ethnicity to draw your lines, then you're subject to strict scrutiny, and we can't prove a Voting Rights Act violation with map A. It's been said several times it's legal and enforceable. So here's our situation. We have a map A, which is legal and enforceable. The city attorney's office has told us all attempts to move off map A are not legal and enforceable. They create an equal protection clause issue. And again, it's not as if the Muslim community doesn't have a point here. I'm in line with the basic goals here, but we have to, as leaders, we have to respect all communities equally. And we can't, we take an oath when we sign up for this job to uphold the Constitution. We can't approve a map where we knowingly violate.
Mr. Chair, just a sec, Bob. Go ahead.
So I would just say, I understand the political arguments and such, but we are basically saying to one community, the Muslim community, that we can't, try to keep you together. We have to improve a percentage, which might be a laudable goal, but it's not legal and it's not right, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Spiker. Back to Alderman Bauman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I with all due respect to Alderman Spiker, I think we're getting a little deep here about upholding the Constitution. I don't know if we're upholding the Constitution or not. I have one opinion from our city attorneys, which we typically follow. Their advice is as good as anybody's. It says what it says. I don't know that map B is illegal, as a matter of fact, and I won't know until the court says so, for sure. Right now, we're a political body. We're not a court. We're a political body. We're here to do a political act, and that is approve a redistricting map. If we approve map B, and if there's consensus to go with map B, I'll make the motion. I'll introduce a file to substitute map B for map A. I was just looking at map B. Looks okay to me. Legal and enforceable. As far as I'm concerned, it is. And I'm the political actor here, not a court. And if someone objects to map B, they can file a lawsuit and get a court to make a ruling. Nothing is illegal unless somebody challenges it and takes you to court. This stuff is not self-enforcing. If we approve map B and it's illegal, there's not some big arm that comes out of the ground that says, nope, you can't do. No, somebody has to file an action. Somebody has to do something. Go to a court. Ask a court to render a judgment. It's not self-enforcing. If no one files a lawsuit, map B is de facto legal because no one has sought to declare it illegal. Same with map C and D. Same with map A. Until somebody challenges it in a legal forum and gets a ruling from a judge, we're not the ones who decide what the Constitution says. That's the Supreme Court of the United States and lesser courts in the civil procedure process. We don't decide that. We're political actors, not legal actors. I don't know that the city attorney's opinion is correct. I don't know that these cases say what they say. I'm not as confident as Alderman Spiker is regarding the legality of this. And frankly, it's not my job to worry about the legality. My job is to do a political act. We need a map in place so we don't lose control of this process. I'm in favor. I can live with map B. I pledge to vote for it as I'm sitting here. But somebody has to make the motion, and I think we need a recess to prepare that paperwork. Would that be fair, Mr. Clerk?
Currently, right now, the motion on the floor is to hold, right, which takes precedence over anything else. Unless the sponsor, Alderman Perez, wants to withdraw his motion to hold, that's the motion that's up for debate and discussion at this point in time. At this time, Alderman Perez.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, as a point of clarity, if B if it's put on, if we go into recess and it's put on the floor for a vote and it fails, can I then make the motion to hold again after that or not?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. Then I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay.
Do we need it in writing, Mr. Chair? Okay.
Mr. Chair, on the motion, or the,
And I just to be clear, I'll withdraw my motion to hold and ask you, Mr. Chair, and the City Clerk's office to prepare Map B then.
Okay.
For consideration.
That's certainly appropriate. The motion to withdraw is withdrawn. Alderman Perez is requesting our staff to redraw Map B, which won't take much time. So, yeah, on that issue, Alderman Spiker.
thank you, Mr. Chair. I did not get the idea to fully explore the legality of this on my own. It was in conversations with the community. That community will be aggrieved and will have reason to pursue the things that Alderman Bauman spoke to. I want to be clear. I put the Supreme Court case in here because it is as clear as can be. If I can just, this isn't the city attorney's opinion. This is the United Supreme Court's opinion. It says on page 1 under 1A, the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment limits racial gerrymanders and legislative districting plans. It prevents a state, in the absence of sufficient justification, from separating its citizens into different voting districts on the basis of race. When a voter sues state's officials for drawing such race-based lines, our decisions call for a two-step analysis. Here I'll be very brief. First, the plaintiff must prove that race was the predominant factor motivating the legislature's decision to place voters within or without a district. There's no question, and there is a long record, that we moved away from A, even B, even C, which I was in favor of, moved away from A for the sole purpose of increasing the Latino percentage in the 13th district. That's a matter of record. Given that that's the case, if the case continues, if racial considerations predominated over others, the design of the district must withstand strict scrutiny. And that requires that we as the state have to provide a compelling interest that we have narrowly tailored our plan to meet. The only compelling interest cited in these cases is trying to avoid a Voting Rights Act violation. None of the maps we proposed have that objective, are even on the table. They don't pass the 3 threshold Gingles conditions of identifying a voting age Latino majority district. So I would encourage people to read that opinion. It is not ambiguous in any way. We have the city attorney saying that it's not just one person, it is a team. And we have the case itself in the record. Page 1 and 2 is all you need to read of it. So I just want to be clear that if we do proceed with something like B or any, even map C, that we would be doing something that the letter of the decision says would violate the Constitution. So I just want us to be very clear on that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Spiker. Further discussion on the item?
No, Mr. Chair?
Alderwoman Samaripa.
Just a quick response to the remarks that Alderman Spiker just gave. I do want to indicate to my colleagues that federal courts agree that race can be a factor, just not a predominant overriding factor. Again, I implore you to look at Map B. Other considerations were obviously made which is why it's only at a 36% Latino population. And I know and have conferred with legal experts in this field that agree that Map B, the For Latino Compromise Map, is legal and meets all requirements. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alderwoman Zamaripa. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, just super briefly.
Go ahead, Alderman Spiker.
Again, for race or ethnicity to be the predominant factor behind a plan, it doesn't have to be the only one. It just has to be the overriding one. Look at Map A, look at Map B, and say, why was there an effort to move away from Map A? Everybody has said it was to increase the Hispanic population in District 13. If that is the motivation, that's the reason for doing it. That is the predominant, if not the only, at least the predominant reason for moving off Map A and for our decision then, if we were to pursue that path. I think that's very clear. Thank you.
Okay, Alderwoman Marina Dimitrievich, please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I just want to be sure for the public and ourselves, are we entertaining a recess to get this map in front of our colleagues?
No.
What is currently before us, Mr. Chair?
It'll be done in a few minutes, so I don't think it's necessary to. It'll be drafted in a few moments, so it's not necessary to go into recess. So, okay. And anyone who wishes to talk further on this item, feel free to do so. If not, we can proceed.
Mr. Chair, for informational purposes, could you explain exactly, because I know the referral to committee was removed. So now, is this a substitute being offered by Alderman Jose Perez?
Yes. So he's going to be he withdrew his motion to hold, and his substitute a motion to bring in Map B. So that would be a substitute.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
While we're waiting, we can hold this item and just move forward on the rest of the agenda. So
it gets worse.
But then, is there anyone who wishes to stall a little bit longer?
Have a recess. Let's do a recess.
Well, I mean, you tell me, City Clerk. It shouldn't take more than a few minutes.
No, the last email I received, Mr. Chair, was that they were very close to complete. So it's
okay, so
very nearly done.
I think, and Alderman Spiker wishes to speak some more. So, Alderman Spiker.
Yeah, I'm happy to give that time for the LRB to prepare. I would be interested. I am not a legal expert. I wouldn't presume to say to even hazard anything on this were the matter not so clear in the way I've just read. If there are any other legal minds who've looked at that opinion too, I'm happy to hear suggestions. If I've erred in some way, and this is what I've seen in every concern lodged since the Jed Lake hearing, there's nothing specific about what the problem is with A from a legal standpoint, and there's nothing specific about how a legal path forward with when any of the other maps will proceed. Alderman Bauman was tenacious in pinning down the city attorney. Is Map A legal and enforceable? Yes. Are any of the others? No. That's where we left it. If I'm erring in some way, I would happily know it from any of the other minds more graced than I am with legal matters. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Alderman Hamilton, did you have something or no?
Well, I do. I mean, I thought many of the arguments that Alderman Bauman made and were pretty clear. I think the layout of at least the legal stance of where the city attorney's opinion led us was led out pretty clear by Alderman Spiker. And the frustration about the process and whether or not, the timing of when all of this information came out and the impact on whether or not we should, the weight that we should put on the opinion has been clearly positioned by Alderman Perez. Trievich and Alderwoman Zamaripa. But the job of our committee was to balance all of those things. It wasn't necessarily to take a side on any of those issues. It was to balance them all. And I believe in balance, that the appropriate way forward is to approve Map A. I mean, at the end of the day, I know that there are a number of motions that can be made today and a number of issues. So I was going to, Mr. Chair, kind of let that play out. I do understand that there are a number of members who would like at least some time to digest what it would mean if Map B, any other map other than Map A was introduced, just so that there can be an understanding of what, most of us on the committee and most of us that have been, in the committee listening to all of the testimony, know what Map A, B, C, and E, D, we know what all of those maps refer to, but giving members enough time to actually see what they do and what each one of those are, I think will be necessary to do a quick recess just so people can know what's being introduced if we're going to introduce another map other than Map A.
Okay, well, that's an appropriate motion, and I thought LRB would be able to do this quickly. Apparently, it's not. So Alderman Hamilton requests we move into recess, and hearing no objections, we'll take a 10-minute recess. Hearing no objections, so ordered. Milwaukee Common Council reconvenes. It's now approximately 10:19. Today is the 18th of January, and we are still on the item involving redistricting, and I'm going to afford the opportunity to Alderman Perez, who withdrew his motion to hold and will be offering a substitute before the committee, before the Common Council. But before he does so, I've asked the city clerk just to outline and remind council members of the procedural process in which there's a motion to move forward on the substitute. On that motion is a separate vote, and then on the motion to move for approval of that item. If the item first vote moves forward and the second vote fails, the reality is then we have done nothing. So I want to be very clear on that, but I'd like to have the city clerk who can elaborate can speak specifically to that issue. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to be clear, the motion from Alderman Perez is substitution. If you agree to substitute B for A, and should then the file fail of adoption, there will be no file left. It will have failed of adoption, and absent reconsideration would not be before you. The file would be dead. So it's only to point out that it is extremely important when you deliberate the question of substitution. Sometimes it is said that people let substitutions go forward as a courtesy or what have you, but there are substantial consequences to substitution that could affect the ultimate vote.
Has everyone received from the Legislative Reference Bureau the amendment that's being offered by Alderman Perez? I believe it
would have actually come from me.
It would have came from Mr. Ozarski. I have it in my email. So just for it's relating to file number 211396, substitute 2, a substitute ordinance relating to automatic district boundaries commencing in 2022. So with that, I'd like to recognize Alderman Perez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You have before you the motion for B, and hoping that my colleagues will support that. It did take several factors into consideration when deciding the boundaries of this map with the wards, and we can debate the merits of it, but that's the motion in front of you.
Okay. On the motion for approval of substitute B, is there any further discussion? Alderman...
Point of information, please.
Alderman Spiker, then Alderman Hamilton.
Just getting clear point of information. So if we vote yay for the substitute, that would then place map B before us.
That's correct.
If we don't then pass that map, we have no map.
That is correct.
So if we vote no on the substitute, then map A is still before us, and we can still take up the motion to hold or not.
That is correct. Alderman Hamilton?
Yay moves B forward. Nay puts A back before us. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Hamilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to remind members that of the advice of the city attorney's office. You know, map B was actually it was the compromise map. It was the original map that was supported by the committee, and that was being put forward, called the compromise map, and it was the forward Latino suggested map. But I would reiterate the advice of the city attorney's office that that any other map that we approve other than map A would not be legal or enforceable, and you know that puts us in a position where if we approve this one, the inability of being able to go back to map A. So I would encourage my colleagues to stick with map A and heed the city attorney's opinion.
Further discussion on this item from committee council members? Any further discussion? Okay, hearing no further discussion. At this time, Alderman Perez moves for substitute 2 before us, and that is for approval of the map as outlined as B map. We'll do a roll call on that item. Okay, roll call.
On the acceptance of map B, Alderman Hamilton.
No.
Kovac.
No.
Bauman.
Yes.
Dodd.
No.
Cox.
No.
Rainey.
No.
Samaripa.
Yes.
Lewis.
No.
Borkowski.
No.
Perez.
Aye.
Biker.
No.
Dmitrievich.
Aye.
Damper.
No.
Mr. Chair.
No.
4 ayes, 10 noes.
4 ayes, 10 noes. The motion fails. Do I hear another motion at this time? Alderman Perez?
Yeah, I move to hold.
Okay.
Move to hold the item with map A.
Okay, that's an appropriate motion on item A, map, that is before us. So if we can do a roll call on that item.
And Mr. Chair, it is my understanding that Alderman Perez is not invoking the charter provision. This is a standard hold, which would be 8 votes, but I would ask him to clarify.
Is that correct, Alderman?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
On the motion to hold, Alderman Hamilton.
No.
Kovac.
No.
Bauman.
No.
Dodd.
No.
Cox.
No.
Rainey.
No.
Samaripa.
Aye.
Lewis.
No.
Borkowski.
No.
Perez.
Aye.
Biker.
No.
Dmitrievich.
Aye.
Damper.
No.
Mr. Chair.
No.
3 ayes, 11 noes.
3 ayes, 11 noes. The motion fails. The matter is before us, but I assume that there'll be at least 3 members voting against this item. So if we can do a roll call on approval of item A.
May I speak, Mr.
Yeah, absolutely. Alderman Samaripa.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, I want you to know what a slap in the face this redistricting process has been to Milwaukee's Latino community. Excuse me. For weeks and weeks, my community and Alderman Jose Perez and I worked alongside Latino leaders, organizations that serve our constituents, and allies, in particular, Alderwoman Marina Dmitrievich, to advocate for a map that would better represent the fastest growing constituency in the great state of Wisconsin, our Latino community. We had countless phone calls and virtual Zoom meetings with Latinos of all political stripes. We argued and we collaborated and we disagreed, but with a common goal: to lift up our community, earn the acknowledgement we deserve, and fight for our seat at the table. A week ago yesterday, in the Committee on Judiciary and Legislation, my Latino community was dealt a huge blow, sucker punched by the city attorney's office. Multiple assistant city attorneys failed to advise or inform members of the Common Council who they knew were working with the Latino community to draw a more favorable map. These assistant city attorneys gave us no indication of their intention to set a trap on committee day and accuse our constituents and me and some of our colleagues of being in violation of the 14th Amendment. These attorneys lay in wait, listening to all of the public testimony before shutting the public hearing down and imploring us to go into closed session to inform us that it was their belief all maps were illegal except for the originally vetoed Map A, which you are voting on today. I have heard conflicting accounts from the city attorney's office about everything from how long they knew of this supposed 14th Amendment violation to why they made the very intentional and conscious decision to not alert any other alderman except Scott Spiker of this risk. City Attorney Chairman Spencer stands with his assistant city attorneys on this weak and suspicious legal opinion and their contention that all maps are illegal except the vetoed Map A. On the day after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, when Governor Tony Evers implored us just yesterday that we, quote, must continue Dr. King's fight to protect and defend voting rights, it is imperative that we do the right thing. We should slow down this process. We should get outside counsel to deem if what transpired on Monday in Jedlight Committee was legitimate. And lastly, I want to say this. As a woman of color myself, the first Latino woman to hold a seat in this body on the Milwaukee Common Council, City Chairman Spencer, who has often expressed to the council that he is criticized by us so vehemently because he is the first black man to hold this position in the city, yet he signs off on this group of assistant city attorneys claiming reverse racism so that we can keep the less diverse, less representative Map A in place. This is infuriating and absolutely disappointing. Mr. Chair, words cannot convey to you my frustration. And I ask, where is the outrage on this grave injustice? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Zamarripa, for your thoughtful words. Any other comments from any other members of the committee? If not, item A is before us. Mr. Clerk, if you could please call the roll.
On the adoption of the redistricting Map A, Alderman Hamilton.
Aye.
Kovac.
Aye.
Bauman.
Aye.
Dodd.
Aye.
Hawks. Rainey.
Aye.
Zamarripa.
No.
Lewis.
Aye.
Murkowski.
Aye.
Perez.
No.
Spiker.
Aye.
Dmitrievich.
No.
Stamper.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
11 ayes, 3 noes.
11 ayes, 3 noes. The matter is approved. Is there any further discussion on the committee report? Hearing none, Alderman Hamilton moves for adoption of the recommendation.
Mr. Chair, before we leave the committee report?
Yeah, absolutely, Alderman Hamilton.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that before we started this second round of indulging in this redistricting process, I mentioned to members that this process was more than redistricting, that it was more about how disenfranchised communities interact with their local government. And I believe that council members in good faith engaged in an effort to try to increase Hispanic representation in the city and to achieve that elusive third majority district, and attempted to balance all of the other considerations that needed to be on the table while we attempted to do that. I think a sincere effort was made on our behalf in order to achieve that, and took a different direction at the very last minute at committee. I don't think that this is the way that we wanted our decision making to end. But I can sincerely say that I know that all members attempted to engage the Hispanic community in a way that respected their voting rights. I wish we went into this with our eyes wide open with all of the legal advice, at least what was given to the mayor. We didn't at least get that much. So it left us in this precarious situation where we had to approve a map that we all felt at the beginning was an enforceable legal map. Many of these issues we did take into consideration in the first round. But we embarked upon an effort to at least try to increase the Hispanic and Latino Latinx representation. And to that end, this was our conclusion. We're confined with the advice that was given to us by the city attorney's office. And if there are, if there's legal standing for them to challenge in the future, we would encourage them to take that fight there. But it was all of our efforts to engage on a different level. Not even about trying to give them what was legally appropriate for the community, but to do what was just. And I think we landed somewhere, where we, I don't think any of the maps that were being supported by the committee are unfair maps. I think the way that this ended up was an unfair process with all of the surprises. So, I'm hoping that we are able to find a way forward where the Hispanic community continues to engage and continue to find a welcome space at their seat at the table when it comes to their city government. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Alderman Hamilton. Additional questions, comments, committee members? No further discussion of the committee report. In hearing none, Alderman Hamilton moves for adoption of the recommendations to the Judiciary and Legislation Committee. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Hamilton. Aye. Kovac. Aye. Bauman. Aye. Dodd.
Aye.
Cogs.
Aye.
Rainey. Aye. Samaripa.
Aye.
Lewis.
Aye.
Borkowski.
Aye.
Perez.
No.
Biker.
Aye.
Dmitrievich.
This is on the balance, I'm sorry.
Correct.
Okay, aye.
Damper.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
13 ayes, 1 no.
13 ayes, 1 no. The matter is approved. At this time, Alderwoman Marina Dmitrievich will now present the report of the Public Safety and Health Committee.
The Public Safety and Health Committee recommends passage of 50, a substitute ordinance relating to a requirement that face coverings be worn in certain indoor environments under certain conditions. 51, a substitute ordinance relating to parking controls. 52, a substitute ordinance relating to traffic controls. The Public Safety and Health Committee recommends adoption of 53, substitute ordinance requesting the Executive Director of the Fire and Police Commission to work with the Fire Department and the Police Department to survey employees who move out of the city. 54, a substitute resolution authorizing the Milwaukee Fire Department to further amend the ambulance service contract agreements with Bell Ambulance Incorporated and Curtis Universal Incorporated for emergency medical services. The Public Safety and Health Committee recommends placing on file 55, communication from the Inspector General relating to a report of investigation, misconduct, and conflict of interest during the Converged Security Information Request for Proposals.
At this time, is there any discussion on any of the items?
Mr. Chair,
Alderman Zamaripa.
may I ask for a temporary hold as LRB delivers a substitute amendment to the mask ordinance to my colleagues?
Okay, that's certainly appropriate. I think we can take up the other items on the committee report and hold item 50. What item is it, Mr. Chairman? Again? 50. Item 50. At this time, the committee moves for adoption, notwithstanding of item 50. We do a roll call, please.
Alderman Hamilton. Aye. Kovac.
Aye.
Bauman.
Aye.
Dodd.
Aye.
Cox.
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
Zamaripa.
Aye.
Lewis.
Aye.
Orkowski. Aye. Perez.
Aye.
Biker.
Aye.
Dimitrievich.
Aye.
Stamper.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
14 ayes.
14 ayes. The matter is adopted. Alderman Perez will now present the report of the Zoning, Neighborhood, and Development Committee.
The Zoning Neighborhoods and Development Committee recommends adoption of 56, resolution authorizing an easement, lease agreement, and sale of a part of the city-owned property at 2270 South Kinnickinnick Avenue to 2266 KK LLC in the 14th Aldermanic District. 57, resolution approving land disposition report for the property at 517 through 19 West North Avenue in the 6th Aldermanic District. The Zoning Neighborhoods and Development Committee recommends adoption of 58, approval of 58, substitute motion directing the Department of City Development to initiate a zoning map amendment to change the zoning of lands located in the vicinity of North Jackson Street and East Summerfest Place from industrial mixed to an appropriate central business zoning designation in the 4th Aldermanic District. The Zoning Neighborhoods and Development Committee recommends confirmation of 59, reappointment of Allison Nemec to the City Planning Commission by the Mayor. 60, reappointment of Brianna Sas-Perez to the City Plan Commission by the Mayor. 61, reappointment of Renell Washington to the City Plan Commission by the Mayor. 62, appointment of Alderman Ashanti Hamilton to the Redevelopment Authority by the Mayor. The Zoning Neighborhoods and Development Committee recommends placing on file 63, communication from the Department of Neighborhood Services and the Milwaukee Fire Department relating to an educational campaign raising awareness of electrical hazards.
Alderman Hamilton abstains from item 62, and hearing no objections to that. Is there any further discussion on the committee report? Hearing none, Alderman Perez moves for adoption of the recommendations of the Zoning Neighborhood Development Committee. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Hamilton.
Aye.
Kovac.
Aye.
Bauman.
Aye.
Dodd.
Aye.
Cogs.
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
Zamaripa.
Excuse.
Lewis.
Aye.
Orkowski. Aye. Perez.
Aye.
Biker.
Aye.
Dimitrievich.
Aye.
Stamper.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
13 ayes, 1 excused.
13 ayes, 1 excused. The committee report is adopted. Alderman Khalif Rainey will now present the report of the Community and Economic Development Committee.
The Community and Economic Development Committee recommends confirmation of 64, reappointment of Kendall Brennig to the Business Improvement District Number 2 by the Mayor. 65, reappointment of Paul Rubitsky to the Business Improvement District Number 27 by the Mayor. 66, reappointment of Antonio Felder to the Business Improvement District Number 28 by the Mayor. 67, reappointment of Kelly Felder to the Business Improvement District Number 28 by the Mayor. And 68, reappointment of Ariam Casete to the Business Improvement District Number 28 by the Mayor.
Is there any further discussion on the committee report? Hearing none, Alderman Rainey moves for the adoption of the recommendations of the Community and Economic Development Committee. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Hamilton.
Aye.
Kovac.
Aye.
Bauman.
Aye.
Dodd.
Aye.
Cogs.
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
On the CED Committee, Alderwoman Zamaripa.
Aye.
Lewis.
Aye.
Orkowski.
Aye.
Perez.
Aye.
Biker.
Aye.
Dimitrievich.
Aye.
Stamper.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
14 ayes.
14 ayes. Committee report is adopted. Alderwoman Zamarripa, are you at this time ready to present item 50 with your amendment?
LRB is
Bill drafting?
still drafting. It's on its way
Okay,
momentarily.
we can move to item.
We do have it in our mail.
We do have it.
Oh, it's 1038 was still missing
Oh, it's still missing something, sir?
Bauman's edition there, so
Very good.
he needs a few more minutes.
Okay, we can move forward. We can take up the communications from the city officers.
File 211410, communication from the city clerk relating to the service of papers.
Order on file.
File 211424, communication from the Citizen Advisory Committee on the naming of public buildings, facilities, and streets relating to its 2021 annual report.
Order on file.
File 211425, communication from Mayor Tom Barrett informing the Common Council of his resignation.
Order on file.
File 211455, appointment of Karen Detmer as Special Deputy Commissioner of Public Works.
Order on file.
File 211437, communication from the Comptroller's Office relating to a report on sewer user rates.
Order on file.
File 211454, communication relating to the 2021 annual report of the Administrative Review Appeals Board.
Order on file.
File 211470, communication from the city clerk relating to official notices and reports.
Order on file.
File 211471, communication from the city clerk relating to various commendatory and condolatory resolutions to be acknowledged and affirmed by the Common Council.
Order on file.
File 211494, appointment of Erica Y. Olivier as Deputy Commissioner of the Milwaukee Health Department.
Order on file.
File 211518, appointment of Tony Biscabing to serve as the Controller's designee to the Housing Trust Fund Advisory Board.
Order on file.
And file 211519, appointment of Richard Baer to the Deferred Compensation Board by the Controller.
Order on file. Are there any matters to be considered for immediate adoption? Are you ready, Zamarripa?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, at this time we'll reconsider item 50. Alderwoman Zamarripa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There should be, please check your most recent email from Christopher Hillard of LRB for the substitute amendment to the mask ordinance.
Okay.
And with that, yes, I see it here, updated. And with that, Mr. Chair, I offer this substitute mask ordinance legislation. I just want to convey to my colleagues that I worked very closely with a number of folks, everybody from my colleague like Alderman Bob Bauman to Health Commissioner Kirsten Johnson and her staff, to the mayor's team, to put together a truly compromise piece of legislation that would require masks for folks. If you enter a public building, you got to have your mask on. And I heard concerns from the business community. I was happy to work alongside also my colleague and Chair of Public Safety and Health, Alderwoman Marina Dimitrievich, and we have here before you the mask ordinance that I hope we can pass into law today. Also want to give...
Well, I'm sorry.
Just for the record, it's not in...
I just asked Jim to go to LRB and get copies.
Okay.
because it's not recorded in our files yet. But please go ahead. Continue talking.
Okay, thank
You
you.
can talk through the changes. And
Yeah, that's fine.
But we should read it too, of course.
Oh, it does appear, oh, I thought he was sending it to all of my colleagues. It looks like
He did not.
it just went to you and I, Marina. Oh, he did send it to Jim O. Did we ask him to? Okay. Yes. So it's forthcoming, the draft to my colleagues. I apologize for the technical snafus here. But again, this is a compromise piece of legislation. I know, Bob, you were talking when I was speaking, but I did give you a shout out. Bob worked hard to advocate in particular for our small business community. And the end date for this mask ordinance is sooner rather than later. It is March 1st now. Thank you, Bob, for working with me. And again, just a shout out to the Health Commissioner, Kirsten Johnson, for working alongside me, and my co-author, Alderwoman Marina Dimitrievich.
So if you would like to just, we do have a copy of it in our files now, but if you could please just talk about the differences between what was in the file and the new changes that you're making.
Yes. So the initial file had previous enforcement language from last Milwaukee forward. And I'm happy that you asked this question, Alderman Murphy. I want to be clear to the public, and in particular our small business owners who have expressed much concern. This is not the same order from last year. This is a straight-up mask ordinance, and the enforcement has been substantially changed, frankly, at the behest of Health Commissioner Kirsten Johnson. Whereas last year we know there were monetary citations that could become quite hefty for our small business owners who are already struggling in the pandemic. There's still accountability in this ordinance before you today, but it is not tied to monetary citations. Rather, it is tied to licensing and renewals. So a business could be dinged when it's time for their renewal via warning letters, suspensions, or even possible non-renewal if they're not being good actors when it comes to the mask ordinance.
Mr. Chairman? I want to make sure Alderman Rip is finished. Okay, Alderman Borkowski.
Okay. So the first paragraph says that the ordinance further specifies that the indoor mask covering requirement shall be in effect until March 1st, 2022. Is that correct from the authors? Okay.
Yes, we moved that, yes, at the advocacy and behest of Alderman Bauman.
Well, okay. First of all, I have great empathy for the authors. I know that they have put their heart and soul into this ordinance. I know that Alderwoman Zamarripa has had personal suffering from people that have passed away from this terrible disease. And I get it. I get it. From my heart, I totally understand where people are coming from. But I go back to my district, which I abut West Dallas and Greenfield, where literally a block, or a street rather, is the difference between Milwaukee or a West Dallas, or Milwaukee and a Greenfield. There's like some electromagnetic force field that the virus supposedly knows that wear a mask in Milwaukee, but you don't have to across the street wear a mask in West Dallas. I am not going to support something that is going to go into effect for basically a month and a half. I'm sorry, but we watered this down so much in a quest to try to have something. I get it. I really get it. But I'm not going to be part of something that March 1st, that's a month and a half away. So we're going to have this in effect for a month and a half. And what exactly do we think we're going to accomplish? And I'm sorry, I've had so many people from restaurants contacting me. Mr. Witt from Pabst, and I mean, so many people are bending over backwards asking for vaccination requirements and this and that. And I'm being told that at Pfizer Forum, half the people aren't wearing the so-called mask ordinance that Pfizer Forum has. Let's not kid ourselves. It's a paper tiger. I'm not going to be part of this because it just does not make sense to me, and I apologize because I'm not going to be able to explain it to my constituents. I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Alderman Bauman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I do share a lot of Alderman Borkowski's concerns, but I will support this. I think it's very important that there's probably people listening and watching who do not have the benefit of this substitute in front of them, whether electronically or via paper, because basically it was just introduced 5 minutes ago. Members of the council have had the benefit of it for a couple of days, but not the general public. So a lot of the small business, performing arts venues don't know what's in here, and I think it's important to basically tell them what's in here. Number one, the exemptions are made explicit. The exemptions are now part of this ordinance. So you can go to one place and find out what's exempt. Who's exempt? Persons in settings where it is not practical or feasible to wear mask coverings when obtaining or rendering goods and services to the extent necessary to obtain or render such goods or services, including but not limited to performers during performing art events, individuals receiving dental services or medical treatment, and individuals consuming food or beverage. So you can still walk into a restaurant, wear your mask for 2 minutes, sit down at your table, and eat for an hour without a mask. Still permissible, totally permissible under this ordinance. What else is exempt? People engaged in athletic activities. So no, the Milwaukee Bucks do not have to wear masks, nor the visiting teams, nor the Admirals, nor the Wave, nor anybody else engage in athletic activities. But I think the key here, if you read the penalties and enforcement, you will see that this is a non-mandate mandate, because everything here is couched with the health department may enforce this section. If they get the first complaint, they will send you a letter, may send you a letter. They may not send you a letter, but they may send you a letter saying, naughty, naughty, make sure your customers are wearing your masks. If they get a second complaint, they'll reach out. They may reach out by phone, by email. They may visit, may. Everything's couched as may. Nothing says shall. Health department may do so. Reach out. If they get a third complaint, they may visit the establishment, and if they see an observed violation, they may submit a written statement to the license division and put a nasty note in the licensee's file, assuming the business has a license file. We don't license every business. There's many businesses across the city, in fact, the vast majority of businesses across the city, that are not licensed by the city of Milwaukee or anyone else. Clothing stores, dry cleaners. I mean, all these businesses do not have licensing files. Yes, bars and restaurants do. People that have performing art, public entertainment premises licenses do. So yes, bars, restaurants, performing arts venues, yes, they have license files. And after the third violation, which the health department may observe and enforce and act on, they'll put a nasty letter in the file, and that's it. No fines, no tickets, no nothing. So basically, this is telling folks what this amounts to is they've already recommended that people wear masks. This is saying we really, really recommend it now. This is a recommendation, folks. This is not a mandate of anything. So for that reason, I will support it, because and I have a word for the health department. They have to realize, at some point, any government agency, any regulatory body, however expert they may be and however well-intending they may be, they can't function without the consent of the governed. And I think health departments across this country, and at the national level in particular, are starting to lose the consent of the governed. People are just not buying this advice anymore. And they're going to do what they want, no matter what. And since this ordinance basically says, do what you want, you might get a nasty letter in your file, ultimately, someday down the road. These health departments better start realizing that they live in the real world. The real world is rebelling against their advice and their counsel, and I hope they take notice of that, because they may lose all credibility. I see there's a case pending before the Wisconsin Supreme Court about their ability to take unilateral action. They may lose that because they've been overzealous. So I would hope our health commissioner is getting the message. You're overzealous at your peril, and your peril is that your power is taken away by the Wisconsin Supreme Court or the state legislature or both, and there you are sitting without any authority to do anything if real emergencies crop up in the future that do require immediate and radical action. So I just hope they're listening, and I hope they start focusing on the real issue. Get people vaccinated. That's the path out of this pandemic. Vaccinations, not mask mandates. But that's fine. We've got a non-mandate mandate. Great. I'm all for that. Given how it's evolved over time. And, well, that's my position. But I will support this as it's been amended.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Bauman. And just for edification for council members, though, the Commissioner of Health has asked for legislative approval of this. She did not want to do it as an emergency order because for the very reasons that you outlined, Alderman Bauman, because she felt it would be overstepping her boundaries. So in defense of her, she did take, in fact, your advice very much so. Alderwoman Marina Dimitrievich.
Thank you so much, Chairman Murphy. Yes, that was something else I was going to add. Look, I want to reframe this just a bit. I would offer that we still are in an emergency. Yesterday was the largest amount of cases in the state of Wisconsin ever. If that doesn't qualify, I'm not sure what would. And that is devastating and scary. And we are on the first day today, the first day in weeks, where children in Milwaukee public schools are finally walking back into their classrooms. And as a parent of one of those children, I'm still scared. I'm still terrified. It's still really concerning. But my number one goal in supporting this and doing it before, believe me, I can't believe that we're back here. We already had this talk 2 years ago, ish, right? Or maybe a little less, but who knows? In pandemic, time feels different. But it was a long time ago, but not that long ago. And here we are. I do very much so agree with Chairman Murphy that we've listened to the commissioner. She wanted the legislative support. And I think, not to go on and on, but like, we're all in this together. It's the very reason that people are making individualistic choices to maybe vaccinate or not, or boost, or mask or not. If we all had the same goal, which was try to protect one another, I don't think we'd be exactly where we are right now. I think children would be back in schools sooner and business would open. So we've got to move on from that. We've got to think, we've got to work together. And like I always said, we can actually do more than one thing. I believe that we can increase vaccinations, and while we do that, we will mask to reduce indoor transmission, and we will do everything else necessary to try to get into the endemic. Like I said, it's very promising that the rapid tests are on their way. I think we're not too far away from it. But this is yet another tool that can help reduce the indoor transmission. That's the goal here. We know that's where the virus spreads rapidly and wildly, and we're doing our best in this legislation. I'll admit, once again, it's not perfect. Look, the enforcement part was never the best part of it. It's difficult. We didn't want to individually take at people or involve the police. I'm hoping we're not at that state of society. This is designed to be compliance-based, and businesses can put something up on the door that says it's a current government mandate. And I hope that helps as we move forward. And I guarantee you, if we can reduce transmission, we can get back to something that feels a little bit healthier and back to normal. We have to do all we can. And I see this as an endorsement of the work. And I think that together, both government and the department can work to reduce the transmission. And so I do think it's a great effort. And look, I understand my last point, Mr. Chair. It is tough. And we have the public constantly questioning and responding when things are changing last minute with amendments. But know that that's a healthy part of democracy, because those changes are inspired by the call to action, right? So the questions that we got, the points that were brought up, that's a healthy democratic process. And we're making those changes. I mean, look at the federal government. I know it's not a perfect example, but we're constantly having compromise and discourse to have those changes. And what's before you today, I believe, resembles the best effort of that. So I'm happy to support it. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Samparippa.
I just wanted to respond to a couple of comments from Alderman Borkowski and Alderman Bauman, but I do thank Alderwoman Dimitrievich, my co-sponsor, for those remarks. Alderman Borkowski, I totally understand. I know that your district in particular borders other municipalities within Milwaukee County, and if I could, I would apply this to the entire county. I commit, if you would like, to work with you to advocate with our county government for that. But unfortunately, we only have, as you know, power or jurisdiction over the city. And so I must move forward with this. To Alderman Bauman's point around the enforcement, Alderwoman Dimitrievich already said it. This is not a perfect piece of legislation. I got a lot of the enforcement changes by working directly with the commissioner. You speak to the fact that we need to push vaccination. That is what she is committed to. Commissioner Johnson is absolutely committed to getting people tested who need COVID testing and to getting folks vaccinated. That is where her emphasis is, and that is why she asked us to help her to ease enforcement for her so that her staff, spread thin as they are, exhausted as they are still doing what is the number one goal that we all have, and that is to get our folks vaccinated, tested if they need testing. So we worked with them on this enforcement language. We're asking folks to work together. Some businesses have implored us to do this so that they can put up that signage saying, hey, the city is telling us we got to do this to protect themselves, their workers, and their customers. And with that, I hope folks will vote to pass this mask ordinance today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alderman. Any additional questions, comments from committee members? Alderman Spiker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just very briefly, I do appreciate the sponsors' efforts. This has changed substantially since committee, become much less punitive. I do have a district very similar to Alderman Borkowski's in that we do have municipalities right across the street for a lot of our businesses. So I have heard strong concerns from business owners in my district that this will put them in an awkward position, nevertheless, of saying to some customers will yell at them because they don't have a sign up saying you gotta wear a mask, and then other customers will be furious because you have a sign up saying you have to wear a mask. So it again puts businesses in a tough position without us supplying them with further resources to address that. So so in the end, I can't support it all. I'll abstain though, just because I do sincerely appreciate the efforts of the sponsors to try to address some of these concerns, and it is an improvement over what we saw at committee. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any additional comments from council members?
One last point I wanted to make.
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Stamper, then Alderman Zamaripa.
Yeah, thank you. I was just wondering where the March 1st date derived from.
Mr. Chair.
Alderman.
Thank you, Alderman Stamper, for your question. Actually, that was from Alderman Bauman, who advocated vehemently for small business owners. As you know, he would prefer that we not do this at this time, but he worked with me to at minimum push the date up. It was originally April 10th, but I did agree to make it a little bit sooner with a March 1st date. That does take us to the next Common Council meeting, where we, if at the commissioner's behest, we may have to extend it, or hopefully we won't. But that was the intention around moving it to March 1st. That's the next Common Council meeting. And I don't know if Alderman Bauman.
Mr. Chair?
Alderman Bauman.
Alderman Stamper's question, yes, it is an arbitrary number, arbitrary date, which was the product of negotiation. My preference would have been January 21st for the expiration date, this Friday. But that wasn't acceptable to the sponsors, so we negotiated February 28th, then March 1st, because March 1st is a council meeting date, I believe. I believe that was...
And for the 21st.
No, let's leave sleeping dogs lie. Yeah, the first is the March 1st is whatever. So that's how that date was arrived at.
Alderman Stamper, your question answered to your satisfaction? Okay.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay. Any additional comments, questions, committee members? If not,
I just wanted to make one last point. Alderman Murphy. I do want to note that per Commissioner Johnson's last briefing of the Public Safety, Public Health Committee, she did speak to the percentages of folks vaccinated in our city, broken down by race, ethnicity. We know that less than half of Latino Milwaukeeans have been vaccinated. 36% of Black Milwaukeeans have been vaccinated. Our white counterparts are at 65% plus, I believe. Again, another indication. Alderman Borkowski already spoke to my own personal losses. I'm attending a wake this Friday of a 40-year-old woman who died of COVID. Yes, she chose not to be vaccinated. But nevertheless, these are real losses that we are experiencing in the most diverse city in the great state of Wisconsin. Again, another reason why I think we need to pass this mass ordinance today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alderman. So, Alderwoman Zamarripa moves for approval of item 50. That matter, Alderwoman, go ahead.
Mr. Chair?
I'll go ahead, Alderman Perez.
Yeah, I tried to get in before. I guess I wasn't heard. I just wanted two things. I forwarded a letter that I received from young people, youth in our community, from Youth Empowered in the Struggle, who asked for help with this pandemic. And one of the things they asked for was a mask mandate. I think that the efforts and the work put in by Alderwoman Zamarripa, Alderwoman Dimitrievich, and myself as being a co-sponsor, but they did the heavy lifting to meet small businesses where they're at. Some may want to call it watered down, but we heard that public safety, small businesses asked for help. And they asked for help so that they could use a mask mandate in a different way. And I think that we're delivering on that. And I think we need to do something. Because if you look at the dashboard, the 12th district is red. It is the highest percentage and concentration. And it worries me. It worries my family. I have kids in NPS, and it worries our community. So I just wanted to just add my support for this file.
Thank you, Alderman Perez. Any additional comments from committee members? Alderman Zamarripa.
Can you be sure to add Alderman Perez to the
Of course.
file as a
Alderman Perez is requested to be co-sponsor and hear an objection. So order. All back to Alderman Spiker. Do you have something else?
Super briefly, I just wanted, I know the headline will be mask mandate passes or mask super recommendation passes, but I don't want it to be lost that the type of mask matters crucially as well with Omicron. So the KN95s, the N95s are what the health department recommends and what we need to promote. So thank you.
Okay, additional questions, comments, committee members? I think we're pretty much done on this item. At this time, Alderwoman Zamarripa moves for approval of item 50. A roll call, please.
On item 50 as substituted, Alderman Hamilton. Aye. Kovac.
Aye.
Bauman.
Aye.
Dodd.
Aye.
Boggs.
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
Zamarripa.
Aye.
Lewis.
Aye.
Borkowski.
Nope.
Perez.
Aye.
Spiker.
Abstain.
Dimitrievich.
Aye.
Stamper.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
12 ayes, 1 no, 1 abstention.
12 ayes, 1 no, 1 abstention. The matter is approved. Thank you. Proceeding on the remainder of our agenda, are there any matters for an immediate adoption?
There are 5 matters for immediate adoption. 69, resolution designating MKE Business Now Entrepreneurship Summit as an official annual city event and authorizing the acceptance and expenditure of contributions. 70, resolution approving final certified survey maps. 71, resolution urging the Fire and Police Commission to require the Milwaukee Police Department to adopt holster sensor technology. 72, resolution relating to a correction of the 2021 tax roll. And 73, resolution authorizing the city attorney to file an amicus brief, amicus curiae, in the matter of Jeffrey Becker versus Dane County.
Is there any discussion of these items? Hearing none, Alderman Bauman moves for adoption. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Hamilton. Aye. Kovac.
Aye.
Bauman.
Aye.
Dodd.
Aye.
Boggs.
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
Zamarripa.
Aye.
Lewis. Borkowski.
Aye.
Perez.
Aye.
Spiker.
Aye.
Dimitrievich.
Aye.
Stamper.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
14 ayes.
14 ayes. The matter is approved. Are there any announcements? At personal privilege, I just want to say how really what a wonderful event yesterday was at Martin Luther King. I know a lot of our colleagues were present, but I want to purposely just recognize Alderwoman Coggs for her leadership. But the real credit goes to our daughter, who I'm just teasing. But our daughter is the one who raised this issue, and I'm so glad she did. And her mom obviously took the leadership on it, along with Alderman Bauman, to make what is really way too long correction on having Martin Luther King Street run contiguously in our city. So thank you for your leadership on that. I appreciate it. So any other announcements? Alderwoman Coggs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, all of you colleagues, for supporting the effort for MLK Drive. And I hope it really truly is an example for the city and for us about, us working together to help improve the direction of the city. Tomorrow, for residents of the 6th District, there will be a virtual town hall meeting. If you haven't registered on GoToWebinar, please do. If you need the link, please feel free to reach out to my office. I can be reached at 286-2994. Once again, that's 286-2994. That's tomorrow, Thursday. Not tomorrow, I'm sorry. It's, what is it tomorrow? Yeah, tomorrow, Thursday, January 20th, it's on Thursday, January 20th, 5:30 p.m. It'll also be on my Facebook Live, Alderwoman Mulele A. Coggs. We will hear from various departments. Residents will have an opportunity to ask questions, but we also will announce the 2021 Dr. James G. White 6th District Difference Makers. So please join us for that. Additionally, on Saturday, January 29th, we will have the 10th annual MKE Business Now Entrepreneurship Summit from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Residents can also view it virtually, both on my Facebook Live, Alderwoman Mulele A. Coggs, as well as Channel 25 from 10 a.m. To 2 p.m. And that's Saturday, January 29th. So if you're an entrepreneur that may need information on how to grow, start, or improve your business, please tune in. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional comments? Any further announcements? There being no further business, this meeting stands adjourned.
It takes less than 1 minute to find out if you may have prediabetes. You can do it here.